The Russian military has suffered repeated defeats in Ukraine. Vladimir Putin appointed this general to lead the war. After weeks of battlefield collapse, Russia appoints a new general to lead the war against Ukraine. The general who was entrusted with improving Russia's military performance in the Ukrainian war was the head of the Air Force, General Sergei Surovikin. Vladimir Putin's army has suffered a series of military setbacks that have sparked rare criticism of the battlefield command. General Sergei Surovikin was appointed commander of the joint forces in the field of special military operations. The 55-year-old Surovikin marked Moscow's third senior military appointment within a week. The changes follow the reported sackings earlier this week of the commanders of two of Russia's 5 military regions, as its troops have suffered a dramatic setback in northeastern and southern Ukraine in recent weeks. Surovikin was born in Siberia's Novosibirsk region and has headed the Russian Air and Space Forces since 2017. Surovikin has combat experience in the 1990s conflicts in Tajikistan and Chechnya, and more recently in Syria, where Moscow intervened in 2015 on the side of Bashar al-Assad's government. He is accused of overseeing the brutal bombings that destroyed large parts of Aleppo city. A Defense Ministry report in July said that until recently Surovikin led the South Force in Ukraine. The name of his predecessor has never been officially disclosed, but some Russian media say the post was previously held by General Alexander Vornikov. Vornikov was also a general in the Second Chechen War and the Russian commander in Syria. According to Alexander Vautravers of the Swiss Military Review, the start of the Russian invasion of Ukraine did not occur under a unified command. This is because there are 5 different army groups, each leading an autonomous operation. That would change under Surovikin's wartime leadership, he said. The reasons why it is not possible to have unified command of all Russian forces are the distances and the lack of information technology to unify all command and control facilities and capabilities, Vautravers said. What we're seeing now is one person and one headquarters planning and directing operations. There is currently a shrinking of Russia's military operations in Ukraine. But it is also a signal that from now on operations will concentrate on one particular area. Maybe Luhansk, maybe Donetsk, maybe in the south. What we are seeing is a shrinking of Russian operations. The decision to give Surovikin command of the war, unusually announced by Moscow, comes after a series of crushing defeats suffered by the Russian army in Ukraine. Russian troops were driven from large parts of northeastern Kharkiv in early September by a Ukrainian counteroffensive that allowed Kyiv to retake thousands of square kilometers of territory. Russian troops also lost ground in the southern Kherson region as well as the Lyman transport hub in eastern Ukraine. The setback led to increased criticism of the military leadership, including from the Russian elite. Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov called for the sacking of a top general last week, while a senior lawmaker, Andrei Kartapolov, urged military officials to stop lying about the situation on the battlefield. Moscow continued to suffer wartime losses. On Saturday, a Kremlin-backed official in Ukraine's Kherson region announced the partial evacuation of civilians from the southern province, one of 4 illegally annexed by Moscow last week. Kirill Strimusov told Russia's state-run RIA Novosti agency that young children and their parents, as well as the elderly, could be moved to the 2 southern Russian regions because Kherson is preparing for a difficult time. On Friday, Moscow said its forces were seizing land in the eastern Donetsk region, its first claim of fresh gains since the successful Kyiv counteroffensive that destabilized Moscow's military campaign. Donetsk, which has been partly controlled by Kremlin-backed separatists for years, is a major prize for Russian troops, who sent troops into Ukraine on February 24.